How y'all doing? Great energy. Great energy. Good to see you all. Wow. We're on day 3 now. First of all, thank you. I just want to reach out across the miles to you all and say thank you, especially to Dean. Dean's worked his tail off to make this happen for you guys. We've worked on it together, but he's really given his all. We have a big hand for Dean Graziosi, everybody. How many of you have already learned some great insights that you know can save you some time, potentially give you some of the, yeah, give me some energy out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you've already got some good tools that can help your business. I also want to make sure I don't fail to thank all of the speakers we've had. We've got a few more here, but I especially want to thank a couple of my dear friends. You got to hear from, Ray Kurzweil, who, it was only a brief part of the interview we just did a few days ago, but this is the guy that has been the most accurate forecaster in human history. In 1990, he made 64, I think, announcements of what was going to happen, including that by 2029, we'd have artificial general intelligence. And right now, it looks like he was slightly conservative. Everybody made it up. They all said it was insane. Literally the most effective guy. If you use digital music in any way, digital documents, he created them all. He's an absolute genius. And so to hear him say that, by the way, they didn't show that part of the interview. I said, what are you using every day for? How do you use it? And he said, well, I have my digital twin, and I'm pouring everything into him, and he and I make decisions, and he gives me ideas. It's fantastic. And then you got a chance to meet briefly also, Ray Dalio. So again, here is the most successful hedge fund investor in the history of the world. They call him the Da Vinci of investing. In 2008, when everybody lost money, he made money. I mean, it's just, I've known Ray now for about, 15 years. He's a total genius. He was worth over $20 billion. What does he do? He has a digital twin. And then when I was with Mark Benioff, as you just saw, I interviewed him, and you got to see, he talked about everything's changed because while he's driving his car, he's got a coach there who knows more than he does, but he's poured himself into it. So I think the reason we did this week is so that you can have this incredible advantage. I'm so passionate about it, that can change everything in your life, and it's only get better and better and better. That's what this is all about. And learning just simply how quickly you can make that happen today. But none of this matters at all if you don't think about one thing, which is what is this all about? What is this really? Is this really about AI? Is it really about technology? No. This whole course is to bring you back to the most important thing in life, which is to get you to be a creator. Remember I talked about this on the first day. It's all the stress people have, and everybody's talking about how stressed they are all the time. Most of that stress comes from the fact that you're trying to manage something, trying to handle it, trying to deal with it, trying to make a living, try to, get your kids to do a certain way, try to make it through the day. Managing feels horrible. Managing produces stress. But as I said on the first day we're together, I want to remind you, we were all created by something. I'm not telling you what to believe in that area, but something created us. And that something gave us a gift, which is the ability to create. And when you start creating life on your terms, when you start creating love or joy or free time or time to think or to create something new or build something in your business, the feeling of creation is like nothing else on earth. And there is no stress in creation. And you and I together are living in a time right now where at the beginning of an explosion of tools that can allow you and I to do things we never dreamed of doing. Listen, most people, and I'm sure you've heard it today, they're one extreme to another. They think AI is the greatest thing that's ever lived, and guess what? We're all going to be rich and never have to work again, and it's all be kumbaya. And there are people saying, no, it's going to kill us all and destroy us all. It's Terminator. Well, obviously, as I said the other day, the truth is somewhere in the middle there. But you don't want to let fear stop you from taking advantage of the greatest opportunities of your entire life, an opportunity to be at the beginning of a new age. And that new age is not an information age. It's an age of intelligence. It's an age where you can leverage things. It's an age where you can do things in minutes that used to take you months. It's an age where you can have someone who works for you 24 hours a day who works for you for basically the cost of the electricity. It's pretty amazing. Small businesses like Mark just talked about, Small, medium-sized businesses can play against big businesses now because there's no limit. They can have these agencies, assistants that can get the job done. So what's going to determine whether you become the creator of your life or keep doing what you're doing? It's not information. Like, you've got a lot of information this couple days you've had with us here, just a few hours a day, but man, we've had some incredible speakers sharing some great insights, and I'm sure you've gotten a lot out of it. But there's one force, there's one fuel, there's one master skill that if you don't use it, all this goes to waste. And what is it? And that's what I'm here to talk to you about briefly today. It's the power of decision. Decisions, not your conditions, determine the quality of your life. People can have the same problems, challenges. One person decides to give up, somebody else decides to find a way, and they do. If there is no way, they make the way. Decisions are what have changed your life. If you look back on your life today and say, why am I where I am? Things you're happy with, things you're not happy with. If you think back, I bet you can find something you decided 5, 10, 15 years ago, 2 years ago, that if you would have made a different decision, your life would be totally different. Can you think of that? How many of you can think of a decision you made in the last 5 or 10 years where you could say, if I made a different decision that, I'd be in a different relationship, or I'd have a different career, or I'd be living in a different place? How many can relate? Make a little noise if you can relate out there, right? So I think most of us forget the power of decision. We forget what's inside of us. And so when we go to an environment like this, or any environment, and we learn things, even things that we think are really valuable, we go, yeah, that's really great, and we write it down maybe or remember it, but information doesn't change your life, right? Action does. And all actions are fathered or mothered by a decision. Think about it. If you let your learning lead to knowledge, you become a fool. Jim Rohn, my teacher, used to say, if you let your learning lead to knowledge, you become a fool. Let your learning lead to action, and you'll become wealthy. And he didn't mean just money wealthy. He mean you'll be rich in joy and happiness and family and finance. And so it's been my watchword. I'm a man of action. Unlimited Power, my very first book when I was 24, was all about how to get yourself to take action. Because without that, nothing else matters. But the tool of getting that action is that decision-making tool. And so, interestingly enough, the word decision, what does it mean? Decision in Latin means to cut off from. When you make a decision, you cut off anything except what you've committed to. It's not stating a preference like, oh, I really should get into AI, or I'm going to use it a little bit more. It's like, no, I'm going to get this tool, and I'm going to get it to serve me in my life. I'm going to get it to free me. I'm going to free up time and energy and joy in my life, and I'm going to be able to learn more rapidly. I'm going to have more fun than I've ever had before. But that requires commitment, a deciding that says, I'm pushing everything aside. I'm going to do this. And we're doing it with you. You can do it in 6 weeks for an hour and a half, like a week, and really get yourself where you want to be. But then you'll have this partner for the rest of your life. So deciding is it, and most people never make the decision. I remember in my life, if there's one skill that has made me go from a guy that was struggling to survive to be able to help millions of people, be able to feed billions of meals, be able to have incredible economic freedom for myself and for my family, and to be able to contribute accordingly, all of that comes down to this first component. Because I know so many people that were in the same classes as me, had the same information as me, but they never took action because they never decided. Again, when I say decide, I mean commit and resolve. There's nothing going to stop you. Cutting off anything that holds you back. Only focused on what you're going to do. It doesn't have to be big decisions. Little decisions stack together to take us where we want to go. But if you'll make the big decisions, it happens even faster. I can remember I went to the U.S. Army at one point, and I got a chance to work with this general, and I was like, how am I going to get him to want to do this? So I made a decision. Before I walked in, I'm walking out with this deal. And everybody said it's not going to happen. But so I went to him, and I thought, I'm going to make an irresistible offer. I said, General, I can take any training program you do in the entire Army. I'll cut the training time in half, and I don't care what it is. I'll cut it in half, and I'll increase the competency. He said, you're crazy. I said, no, I'm expensive. We negotiated, right? And so I got this deal where I would get nothing if I didn't follow through. And because I had everything on the line, I couldn't turn back, I pulled it off. I remember working with Serena Williams. I mean, when her sister got killed and she had been playing poorly anyway, and now she couldn't get herself on the court. And like everybody knows, I want to work with her. Sometimes it's really good to have no way out. It's like, I've got to deliver for her. If I don't, everyone in the world's going to know. And sure enough, I turned around, got her on the court. She won. And then I got all this feedback, expanded my brand, right? But what I'm trying to say is sometimes everybody wants to make a decision when they're comfortable. But the real decisions change your life are the things that are uncomfortable, but you get yourself to do it anyway. And that's where, when there's no net and you push yourself, it's like, I always tell people, if you want to take the island, burn the boats, right? Because if there's a way out, I guarantee you, your brain will look for a way out and it'll find the way out. That's just the way human beings operate. And so the question is, why don't people decide? Well, the biggest reason is they just don't want to fail. I mean, all of us have this fear that if I fail, then what does it mean? And it's like, I don't care who you deal with. I don't care if it's like, I've dealt with presidents of countries, presidents of companies, individuals, kids. Almost everybody has this fear that I don't want to fail, so I'm going to make the perfect decision. And there are no perfect decisions. It's like a lot of people, I'll tell you the phrase you don't want to use. People say this all the time. They say, well, I'm not ready yet. And I remember early in my career, I would do that, and I went nowhere. And there's one day where I finally said to myself, this is BS, man. I'm just like, if I say I'm not ready, that's when I'm ready. I made this promise. When I say I'm not ready and I make myself do something, I'll find the answer. Jim Rohn once again taught me this philosophy of stretching. He said, if you ever say to yourself, I can't, then tell yourself you must and do it now. And I said, if you can't, you must. That means if I can't jump off a cliff, then I must. He said, no, don't be stupid. Right? He said, but what you should consider is like, if there's something I need to do that if I did it, I'd be a better person, I'd be stronger, I'd be wiser, I'd be wealthier, I could make a difference more, I could help my family. If there's something I can learn to do that, and I say, well, I just can't, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I don't have the energy, I don't have the strength, I'm too tired, then you say, I must, and you do it. And, some people said to him, I remember one guy said to him, well, that's not a very safe way of living, just if I can't, then I must. He goes, no, if you want safety, go to prison. If you want a life, if you want freedom, you got to step up. So if you want to change, fear is natural. Like I said, I've worked with prime ministers, kings, queens, incredible athletes, Academy Award winners, average people, prisoners, children, teachers, moms. We all have the fear that we're not going to be enough. It's the deepest fear in all human beings, that we're not going to be smart enough, pretty enough, beautiful enough, intelligent enough, funny enough, rich enough, whatever enough, young enough, old enough, whatever it is, for something that matters. It is the natural human fear to feel not enough, and that fear leads to the fear that if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. And love is the oxygen of life. So the only way through a fear is to act through it. You've got to think about it. Courage does not mean that you're not afraid. Courage means you're afraid and you do it anyway. And it becomes a habit of how you go about things. And so what I try to get people to understand is if you want to have an extraordinary life, if you want a truly successful life at a level that's more than you've dreamed of in the past, then you've got to be willing to take action. And you've got to make the decisions to make that happen. And I'll tell you something else. It's like you're trying to make the wrong decision or make the perfect decision. There is no perfect decision. You got to make the decision that moves you forward. And I think, one way to think about it is, I remember, I don't know how many of you have read the book Think and Grow Rich. How many of you out there read that book? When I was like 17, it was one of the first books I read when I was 17 years old. And if you haven't read it, it's a classic. You got to read it. But I remember in the book, there's an entire chapter on decisions. And it talks about it's the most important thing. And it said a principle I never forgot. It said, all the studies show successful people make decisions rapidly and change them slowly, if at all. And people that fail make decisions very slowly and they change them very quickly, right? It's like go into your gut, push yourself forward. And then the question people say is like, well, how do I get myself to decide? I'm not good at decision making. Well, here's your answer. Make more decisions more quickly. It's like, have you ever been around somebody that they can't even decide, like, you go to dinner with somebody and everybody else decided and they're still, and the waiter or waitress is like, losing their stuff inside and they still can't decide. Who knows what I'm talking about? Everybody with somebody like that, right? And then you look at them, it's like, if you can't make a decision what to eat tonight, you're going to have a hard time making a decision that's going to change your life. So if you want to build a muscle, what do? You work it. And the more decisions you make, the better you're going to be. So what stops people from doing it, again, is fear. So let me tell you the only wrong decision to make. The only wrong decision is to not decide. Because then you find yourself in a position where basically, fundamentally, you're letting the world control you instead of you take control of your world. And it's hard to get this across, but maybe I'll give you a couple quick examples. I remember I had the chance to work with General Schwarzkopf. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember him, but in the first war that they had in the Middle East there, not the first war in the Middle East, but the first war they had with Iraq, they went over and they sent General Schwarzkopf. And he was this incredibly intense general. And he went out there, won the war, and got us back out in no time. He understood his objectives. He got the job done, got out. It's so rare to see in the history of warfare. But the reason I mention his name is because he was so good at inspiring people, because he could connect to the guy that grew up in the streets, and he could connect with a guy that, graduated from Harvard. He was just that kind of guy, and a good human being. But part of what made him so powerful was his ability to make decisions when nobody else did. He made them quickly, rapidly, and because when you make it rapidly, you get more progress faster. And I asked him, how did you develop this habit of decision-making like this? And you seem so confident. He goes, Tony, that's not how it is. He goes, I'll tell you what happened. Years ago, when I was just a private, I had the privilege of working for a general. And I grew up within his staff to a higher level in his staff. And I was the one that had to read all the briefings along with a group of people so I could give him a tighter briefing so he could go into a meeting and understand what's going on and make decisions. He said the purpose of meetings, by the way, is to make decisions, not just to go hear stuff. Otherwise, nothing changes. You should have more meetings. Who's done that in your business? It can drive you crazy, right? So bottom line is, he said, I remember this time where there was a decision that was being made at the Pentagon that they had struggled with for like 12 years. And no one had made the decision because arguments on both sides were so good. So nothing moved forward. And finally, a decision had to be made, and they brought it to the general, and they sent 3 months worth of material for him to absorb before making the decision. Literally, documents after documents after documents. And he said, so all of us as a team with all those documents, we're trying to create the outline of them, make sure we captured all the arguments for him. And he said, and then the general came to me 2 days before and said, I have to fly overseas for 24 hours. He had to deal with something. Be ready for that meeting. And then he flew back, and I thought, how is he going to do this? He's not going to have enough time to prepare. And then the flight back was delayed. And so he got in like at 1:30 in the morning, and we had an 8:30 in the morning meeting with all the people on both sides to make the most important decision probably the Pentagon has made in more than a decade, and he is not prepared. And he said, I was so freaked out. I gave him as much as I could, but I was like, he called the meeting. This general did. He said, Schwarzkopf, I was watching the people on both sides. He said, here's what you got. You got 20 minutes, you got 20 minutes. 15 to 20, you pick. I want your best argument for what you believe we need to do, and then we're going to make a decision. One side went for 20 minutes, full tilt, gave him everything. He took notes. Other side took notes. Then he stood up and he said, do that one. And everyone saluted and walked out of the room and implemented it. And Schwarzkopf told me he was so freaked out. He goes, there's no way he can make that decision. He doesn't have enough information to know all this. My God. And so he said, finally, I got enough courage that I knocked on his door and said, sir, permission to speak freely. He said, permission granted. He goes, sir, I'm the one who does your prep. There's no way you could have been fully prepared. You can't make a decision that important without all the information. And I couldn't even absorb all the information. This information has been accumulated for a decade. He goes, and I said, how could you make that decision? It's so important without all the information. He said, young man, a decision needs to be made. I'm a leader. That's what we do. We make decisions. And this decision has not been made for 12 years. There has been zero progress because both sides can equally argue for their point of view. Something needs to be done. No one had the courage to make a decision, so I did. I did the best one I found that I could find from the information they shared with me, which was the core information. And he said, and guess what? If it isn't correct, we'll make a new decision and go a new direction. But we're not going to sit on the fence any longer. Sitting on the fence means no progress. Failing to decide is the wrong decision. It's not a wrong decision to pick a direction and see if it works. If it doesn't, we'll change. If it does, we'll get it stronger. And Schwarzkopf said, I never forgot that. And the rest of my life changed. Because before I was always trying to make the perfect decision. And he said, there is no perfect decision. I need to decide, commit, and follow through. And it changed his entire life and made him an incredible general. I remember when I was writing Money Master the Game and interviewing 50 of the most successful financial investors in the history of the world, the Ray Dalias, the Carl Icahns, the Warren Buffetts, the Paul Tudor Joneses. And I was interviewing them, and several of them said to me, Tony, sometimes the worst investors are the smartest people. And I said, how can you say that? And they said, because people think they're really smart, want to know everything about something before they decide. If you know everything about it, by the time you know everything about it, so does everybody else, and the opportunity is gone. You need to decide now. Don't wait another moment. That's the lesson. And I got to tell you, I don't care. Jeff Bezos is another great example. Jeff Bezos is one of the most successful business people of all time, obviously, building Amazon. He talks about decision as saying there's two levels of decision, level 1, level 2. Level 1 is a decision that's really low impact and low risks. So just make it. You don't even think, just make it, and then you'll see if it works or not, very much like Schwarzkopf. He said level 2 is a deeper decision. It has a lot more risk to it, it has a lot more impact, and it's harder to change. He said, make those two, right? He said, take a little bit more time to do it, but make it. He said, the way we succeed is by action. The way we fail is by fear, and fear keeps us from deciding. Decision is how you learn. That's what we forget. In fact, if you want to know, most of us, we have imagine your brain as a prosecutor and a defender, and the fear is the prosecutor. Most of us make the prosecutor in charge, telling all the horrible things that may happen if I decide on this. And so we don't do anything. We don't let the defense stand up and do a great job and go, BS, sit down, shut up. Here's why we need to take action. That kind of shift shifts everything in a person's life. I can't get across to you enough. If you could just get yourself to make more decisions more rapidly, you will see everything in your life change for the better. And it doesn't take much. And the reason you don't have to know everything, you just need to know the core things to decide. And if you get away from just thinking, I'm not going to have any uncomfortableness, remember Mark was talking about in that video, in the interview I just did with him, Mark Benioff, it's like, if you're not a little uncomfortable, you're not alive, right? But you can get really comfortable when you got a coach or a friend that knows you and starts to know more about you all the time, and gradually not only knows about you and can help you, but can go to work for you when you're sleeping. That's the world we're in right now. So, and by the way, one more example of General Schwarzkopf just popped in my head. It was a great example, too. I said, did you learn anything else from that general when you were private that shaped you? He goes, yes. He goes, there was a time when the general suddenly called me. He said, meet me in my office. We gathered all these things, and he said, I have to leave for 2 weeks overseas. And he said, we had no preparation. It was an emergency he had to take on. And he left me in charge to run the general's office. And he goes, and I'm fairly green. And I said, but sir, I'm like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? And he looked at me and he said, Rule 13. He said, okay, rule 13, sir. And they start leaving out the door, and Schwarzkopf realized he didn't know what Rule 13 was. And he goes, General, he goes, what's Rule 13? He goes, when put in command, take charge, decide, and act. Okay, Rule 13. He goes, but General, he goes, how do I know? How do I know what to do? I don't know. How do I know the right decision? And he said, Rule 14. He started walking away. He goes, General, what's Rule 14? He goes, Rule 14 is when put in charge, do what's right. And the way you do that is trust your gut. That's what makes you a leader. And I think those lessons are so simple, but they're missed by most people. How many people do you know that have lots of knowledge about what to do? They know they should change their life. They know how they change their life, and they don't do anything. Knowledge is not power. Execution is power. Knowledge, execution trumps knowledge every day of the week, and all execution is make a decision, plant your feet, and go. But what stops people still is that constant focus on trying to be perfect. There is no perfect. Perfect is the language of a fool, right? Because there is no perfect. We know there's nothing perfect. I'll give you an example that really helped me. Years ago, I had the privilege of learning from a guy named Bob Bondurant. He was a really famous race car driver. He's now passed away. And he had his own racing school. And still exists, Bob Bondurant Racing Schools. And I said, I love driving. I want to really learn to race a car effectively. And since I had a relationship with him, I said, do you think you could personally give me some coaching and training? I mean, you're the best in the world. He goes, Tony, I'd be happy to. So he said, come up and meet me at Laguna Seca. This is up in Northern California. It's an amazing racetrack. And he said, and I will show you in a couple of days what you can do in a car, and it's going to blow your mind. So I get in the car with him, and he goes, the first thing we're going to do is you're going to sit over here on the passenger seat, and I'm going to take you on a ride and show you what the car is capable of doing. And if you're not familiar with racetracks, Laguna Seca is unique in that it has this one area where it looks like you're going straight at a wall at high speed, 125 miles an hour, and you go around the wall like this. It is scary as anything can be. He takes me around that track 3 times, and then that thing he says to me, Tony, I know this seems crazy, but in 4 days, you're going to be able to do this. And I looked at him and said, Bob, I don't know if I want to. As I said, I thought I want to race, but my God, this is insane. You're like going at that wall. He goes, I know it's scary. He goes, here's what we're going to do, though. We're not going to have you start out going 125 miles an hour at a wall and flipping around it. He said, we're going to start by putting you in a spin car. I said, what's a spin car? He said, a spin car is a car where you're going to drive, I'm going to be in the passenger seat, and down at the seat, it's wired so that I can push one of 4 buttons. And when I push one of those buttons, it's going to lift one of the 4 wheels I select. Well, when we lift that wheel, we're going to start spinning out of control in that direction. Now, when you start spinning out of control, the first thing your mind's going to do is you're going to look at the wall because you're not going to want to hit the wall. But he said, this is the most important thing. If you want to succeed, you're going to have to train yourself not to focus on what you're afraid of, but focus on what you want. In other words, don't focus on the wall. You'll unconsciously drive into it. Focus where you want to go. You'll unconsciously make the turn. And it'll work. And I thought, no problem. I teach this. This is something I know, right? So I get in the car, and I'm driving. I'm ready. I'm thinking, push that button. Go ahead, push that button, right? And we're going faster. Push that button, push that button. And when you see race car drivers, some people go, they're not athletes. If you get in there, the level of concentration when you're going that fast, you get up to 145 miles an hour, and guess what? All of a sudden, does he push the button when you're ready? No. Does life push the button on you when you're ready? No, right? Never, right? He pushes the button, and what happens? We start spinning out of control in this direction. So what do? I instantly stare at the wall, right? Stare straight at it. Now, he knows what that does. It's going to drive me into it. So he grabs my face and pushes it where we need to turn. Now, I'm fighting him because I want to see the death happen, right? And so he keeps my face like this. So what happens is I turn, and then eventually you keep going, then the wheels catch, and we miss the wall. And my heart's beating out of my chest. And he goes, did you learn? I said, I learned. I didn't learn anything, right? Because you need repetition to get it in your body. So the next time we go, I'm ready. And by the way, isn't this a perfect metaphor for life? See, he told me, you can be the best driver in the world, but things happen. The driver in front of you, his car can break down. Something can go. You can hit an oil slick and you go out of control. It doesn't matter how good you are. Life is going to test you at times. It's going to put you in a spin. The secret to being a great driver, having a great life, being the one driving your life instead of reacting to your life, is learning how to come out of a spin. We're all going to have spins. Haven't you had spins in your life, in a relationship, or in your finances, or in your career, or your business, or your body? So it's a great metaphor, and so he trains me on this thing, right? It's like, now, sure enough, he pushes the button again, right? He must have noticed just a little drop in concentration, and we spin out of control, and immediately I'm pointing straight there, staring at it again. Grabs my head, shoves it, and sure enough, we turn, and it feels like you're going to hit, but the last seconds it catches. And after you do this again and again and again, pretty soon, you do the opposite of the guy that's driving his Porsche down. Have you ever heard the story of a person's driving their Porsche or sports car down a country road? There's only one telephone pole every quarter of a mile. They lose control and hit the pole. Because they lose control, they go, oh, I don't want to hit that. And they steer right into it. Now you learn, okay, boom, look here, boom, here, look, boom. Now it requires faith. Because part of you wants to see what's happening. But if you do that, you turn back unconsciously. So now I'm focused where I want to go. So now I'm getting good at it. So now I'm learning, and now I'm trusting. And by the way, there's one problem. When you turn and start doing things right, you were doing things wrong before, you turn doing things right. Do you get instant rewards? No, because there's what's called lag time. You turn and you still have momentum going that direction. But if you keep the turn, the last seconds, the wheels catch. And it feels like you're 12 inches from it, but you're about 3 feet, 4 feet, 5 feet from it, and you're fine. That's the piece that matters. So here's the question. Am I saying to you, if you look where you want to go, are you guaranteed to succeed? In other words, if you focus on what you want instead of what you don't want, are you guaranteed to succeed? Yes or no? Yes or no? No. But if you focus on the wall, are you guaranteed to hit the wall? And the answer is yes. So all we're doing is increasing our chances. And if you're going to be effective and you're going to have an extraordinary quality of life, you've got to train yourself to focus on what you want. Everybody else is focused on what they're afraid of. And when it comes to AI, this is the place where most people are afraid. They're afraid because they don't know how to use it. Like we've said multiple times, so you're not going to get replaced by an AI. You get replaced by somebody who has to use an AI. And it's not learning a million individual patterns. It's just learning how to have the core pattern that can augment you, something that can get you to get better results in your life and in your business and free up your time and make it for what matters in your life, and maybe go to work after you develop into an agent, or fifth or sixth session, where now the agent works for you. I've got agents, I got multiple agents that work for me. It's amazing. But that sounds so far out there. You take the first step and you get your digital twin in the first session, and you got someone you can bounce off of, like Mark was talking about, that I use, we all use. It's a different game. So I'll give you one more final principle on decision that's so important. My daughter Jolie, I remember when she was growing up, she had this dream. And her dream was to be, a dancer on Broadway. And so she grows up, and, I love the heck out of this kid. And she goes to college. We lived in Los Angeles. And so sure enough, she's going to this Pasadena College. And at one point, she comes home for Christmas. We were living in San Diego at the time. And during the Christmas holiday there, I said to her, I pulled her aside, and I said, Joe, I just got to ask you. I said, how are you doing on your dream? And she goes, what do you mean? I said, you know what your dream is. She goes, well, Dad, you've always wanted to be a dancer on Broadway. She goes, yeah, and I'm getting straight A's in school. She's doing phenomenal. And she said, and I'm winning the dance competitions I'm involved with. I'm winning them all the time. I said, honey, that's what I'm concerned about. She goes, what do you mean? I said, well, I think that you're competing against people you're better than if you're winning every time, and that doesn't make you better. And I said, but even more importantly than that, I said, I think when you see me in my life, you think I'm incredibly brilliant. I'm a genius, and of course I am. I'm your father. I said, what my real genius is, when there's opportunity there, I grab it and I act on it. And not every opportunity has led to something magical. But because I always grab it, I don't miss the opportunities most people do. And that's where people go, wow, you're so lucky. It's because I grabbed every opportunity. A bunch of them didn't work, but I made myself take the action. She goes, well, what are you saying? I said, what I'm saying is, how is going to college getting you closer to your goal? She goes, well, I said, it's not. I said, but she said, you said to go to college. I said, I was wrong. Not about college, just the timing. Because the one thing I have that most people are missing is urgency. Like most people hear about something, oh, that's good, that's important, take it in, that's cool, I remember some of that, I use some of that. My whole thing is, no, if that's in front of me right now, the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, it's put me there for a reason, and I need to find a way to grab it and act on it. It's the urgency, the feeling of now is the time that gets me to make those decisions most people don't make. And I said, honey, right now you're doing great in school. I'm proud of you. But you're not getting closer by competing with people you're better than. She goes, well, what are you suggesting? I said, I suggest you leave school and you move to New York City, because you're not going to be a dancer on Broadway not being in New York, and compete with the best dancers in the world and find out who you are. Take lessons, do all the things you need to do. But I said, hear me out. I think you can make it, but I'm your father and I'm biased. And what I want you to do is, I don't want you to ever have regret. My teacher Jim Rohn used to always say, discipline weighs ounces and regret weighs tons. I don't want you ever regret you didn't take advantage of this. And there's a timeline on a dancer. You can't go there when you're 30 and start dancing. You need to move. She's saying, well, when do you think I'd do that? I said, when would now be a good time? She said, now? Like in the middle of Christmas vacation? I said, yes. She goes, well, I leave in the middle of school. I said, you can go back to school. I said, get yourself in the environment. What do you think? She goes, wow, that's a big decision. I said, honey, big results come from making big decisions. That's what I've done my whole life when no one else did. Had the same knowledge I did, but I acted because I just decided. I didn't know I could. I just decided to find the way. She goes, well, maybe I should talk to somebody else in the industry about this. And I said, sure, you should ask someone else about this. People pay me $1 million to help them make a decision and coach them, but you should go see someone else. Right? And I said, actually, and I teased her. I said, actually, I think that's smart. Who are you thinking of? And she said, well, you know, Jay Maloney, who's a friend of ours. He worked at CAA, which is a big agency in Hollywood. I said, that's great. Call Jay. He's a friend of the family. Talk to him. Ask him what he thinks. She goes, okay, I will. I said, when would now be a good time? She goes, right now. I said, when's there a better time than right now? That's what I got to train you. I got to train you the urgency to act now. Now. Not someday, not in the future, not when the opportunities passed you by. She goes, okay, I'll call him. So she leaves the room. True story. I quickly dial it. And I get on the phone. And I go, Jay, I said, quick question. I said, Jolie's going to call you. I want you to tell her the truth. But tell me the truth. Here's what I told her, right? You're not going to competing with people in LA. You're better. It's not going to happen. You got to be in New York. That's where the best dancers are. Got to compete with the best. Learn from the best. What do you think? He goes, that's absolutely true. That's all you know. Just tell her the truth. She's calling you now. I hung up the phone. She comes back in. She goes, his line's busy. I said, call him again. Don't give up so damn easy. Are you going to make it by making one phone call? So she calls him again. She's gone for almost 45 minutes, maybe almost an hour. Comes back in, kind of like walking around like starry-eyed, like, wow. She goes, I just talked to Jay, and he was so great. We talked for a long time, and, you know, he said, this is what I got to do. I'm not going to be the best dancer in L.A., and I'm never going to be on Broadway working in L.A. And I go to college later. I said, Father knows best, right? I teased her. She laughed. And so I took my daughter, who grew up, not like me, poor and terrible environment. She grew up on the ocean in San Diego, Del Mar, California, you know, perfect weather. And I took her to New York. And I told her in advance, I said, look, I'm going to pay for your apartment for the first 4 months, but then you're going to get a job, and you're going to pay your apartment. You're not going to be living off of us. And I said, you got to be a working actress, but I will pay for your lessons to get better. And you work with some of the best coaches. And let's see what you can do. And so I moved her there it was like the worst winter they'd had in like 7 years. And we got her this apartment, and she toughened up. And so I talked to her by phone, and it was interesting the different things she's doing. But I could tell after a few months she got more and more confident, more excited. And then I was flying into town, and I learned I was coming to town. I get to the airport, and there's a car there. And, wow, this is interesting. And I'm here to take you to see your daughter. Awesome. So we're driving the car, and we go past the off-ramp, or the turn, rather, on the streets where we would have gone to our apartment, and he keeps going. I said, well, isn't that the turn? He goes, no, she's meeting you somewhere else. And he takes me down to the theater district, and we pull up to this theater, and it's Tommy, the play Tommy that Elton John put together, and on the top it says starring, and it has my daughter's name. How's that for amazing grace? Now, I'd love to take full credit for that, but I have no skill to be on Broadway. But what I was able to do was to get her to make a decision. It's the only thing that changes your life, my friends. And sometimes the hardest decisions you're being called to make, but you think, I'm not ready. If I waited till I was ready, I wouldn't be here with you right now. I wouldn't have done 99% of what I did. I just decided to do it anyway. I decided that by making decisions and taking actions, I was going to learn. Think of it this way. Success in life is the result of good judgment. Would you agree with that? Like making the right decisions, having the right judgment makes you successful in finance and business and learning and growing and developing a future, taking care of your body, anything. So if success is a result of good judgment is the result of experience. And experience is often the result of bad judgment, right? Think about it. The only way you get good judgment is you made some bad judgments. The only way to do that is make more decisions. And if you could do that out of these 3 days, then everything else will have power. Otherwise, it'll come knowledge, and you may do a thing or two, but it won't change your life. We're here to help you change your life. Take your business or your personal life to a whole new level. Free yourself up. But to do it, here's the principle that I taught with Jolie. It's the most important principle I know. I taught it to all my kids. I teach anybody I care about, including anybody I meet, including you. And that is, never leave the sight. This is my core principle in life. Never leave the sight of something important where you know you should make a decision, or a site where you set a goal, or a site where you've decided you want something. Never leave the sight of making a decision without doing something in that moment while you're in state to commit yourself to follow through. Because otherwise, what happens is you miss out completely. Like, the problem is, it's like you get it. Have you ever done this? Have you ever said, oh, I'm going to do this? You get yourself in state, you're all excited about something, and then all of a sudden, what happens? You go, I'm excited, I'm going to do this and make this happen, and then you get caught up in your Slacks or your emails or your social media or a bunch of phone calls or meetings or whatever it is, and you miss out. Who's ever made a commitment to yourself you were going to do something, you meant it, and didn't follow through? Make some noise if you can relate there, right? So the principle you want to get in your body is, no. The minute I get excited, the minute some part of me knows I should do this, then I must. Then I got to do something right now. So I'm going to enroll in the class. I'm going to call the person right now. I'm going to schedule the meeting for Thursday so I follow through on Thursday. Not now when I'm thinking about it, but it's already locked in place. I'm going to go meet that person right now. I'm going to do something right now that commits me to follow through in the future. Because otherwise you get out of state, and your intention, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. You heard that phrase a million times. It's true. Now I want to give you one last piece. And that is, I think some people make a decision, but they don't follow through. Who's ever done it? Who's ever made a decision, actually decided, and then you didn't follow through? Make some noise if you're out there. Let me hear from you out there. And I think it's important to know why they didn't follow through, because a real decision, you do follow through. That's the definition of a real decision. You've cut off anything else, you commit and you act. So why aren't people doing it? They're afraid of failing, and trying to be perfect, all things we talked about. But sometimes they fail because they don't realize decision-making has three parts. Let me walk you through them and test them in your own body right now, okay? I want you to think of the idea of deciding. Think of a time you worked hard to make a decision. You finally just decided. Can you think of something where you struggled maybe a little bit and then made the decision? Decision-making can feel like a little bit of a war inside till you finally do it, right? It's like, oh, but what about this? What about that? I don't know if I can do this. I don't have the time, I don't have the money, or I don't have the energy, or I don't know if I can do that. I'm not smart enough, or they're smarter than I am, or I got all these other priorities. All the things in your head that happen. But if you can wrestle those down and you fight that war and you win that war, then you make a decision. And decision-making itself, like I said, it can feel like a certain amount of conflict, right? But when you decide, that's great. But what's the difference between deciding, and committing for you? Search your own body right now. Think of the difference between I decided versus I committed. Raise your hand if you feel a difference in your body. You'd feel different if you're committed. Okay, good. So what's the difference between deciding and committing? What's the difference between those two feelings? Well, decisions that fight that war, now you decide, but the problem is decision-making is in the moment. The only reason the decision gets followed through, though, is if you take it to the second step where you now commit to follow through on the decision. And that committing, think about it. I'd like you to think of right now, what's a decision that you actually followed through on? Maybe it was a tough decision, but you followed through. Can you think of one for a moment? Decision I was trying to make, and maybe I didn't follow through several times, and finally I decided, and this time, man, I absolutely did it. Can you feel that difference from when you decided to when you committed? And what was the difference? Maybe put it in the chat. What was the difference between deciding and committing? What was the difference in your body, or what you did in your head when you said, no, I'm not just decided, I've committed to this? That's it, good. Put it up there for you. And notice that what people are writing. You get a feel for this? That's good. Right? Now I want you to notice the pattern. Yes, I took it forward. Good. Yeah, it was not just the moment. I took it into the future. Great answer. Good. Yes, there was a different emotional intensity. It wasn't just for the moment. It was like Carrying it through. That's exactly right. Okay. So think of deciding as that war you finally decide, but if you don't then commit, where you take what you decide at this moment and you take it into the future, where you start seeing yourself following through, feeling yourself following through. You've locked down something, you've locked down a date so you follow through. That's like, like even this little mini class we've done here for these 3 days for you. You wouldn't have been here if you just decided. Some of you actually committed. You must have put it on your calendar. You must have blocked some time, right? You didn't just show up because you made a decision. You actually made some kind of a commitment to be here each day, or you wouldn't be here. There are other people that decided and didn't show up because they didn't do the commit stage. So feel the difference, though, when you commit, where now all of a sudden it's like, it's not just for the moment. It takes me into the future. It's like when there's a commitment, it's almost like there's consequences. I understand what this means, and I need that result. I want that result. I need that not just for the moment. I need that long term. When you decide and then you commit, that's a different level of momentum, isn't it? And by the way, for females out there, ladies out there, women out there listening, many times women will say men won't commit. And you know what's interesting? They don't realize men haven't decided yet. There's a sequence to decision making. If you try to commit before you even decide, it doesn't work. Women decide and commit almost immediately together when it comes to a relationship if they've decided it's the right one. They decide and commit. Men space that out longer. And so they think men won't commit. No, they've just got to decide before they commit. And then there is a third level. And when you get the third level, then you're going to start loving making decisions when you start doing this. But if you think decision is just, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to master AI. I'm going to go to that course. That's not it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And here's why. I'm committing. My whole life is going to change when I'm not alone anymore, 24/7, 365. I've got my personal coach that understands who I am and what I need and what I want and can make suggestions for me and give me ideas, and eventually one that can go to work for me when I'm sleeping and bring me answers in the morning, right? I'm committed to that. I don't just want it. Many people think they've decided when they say, I want something. No, deciding you want it is like, no, I'm going to make this happen, and committing is I'm going to carry it through. How many feel the difference? If you can feel the difference, make me a little noise so I can see you guys. Awesome. The third step is the most important step of all. It's called resolve. And resolving is a totally different feeling. Resolving is when it feels like it's done. I mean, what does it mean to resolve? It means it's done. It may not be done yet in the world, but it's done in you. How many of you have ever made a decision on something and then you committed, and then you eventually got this point where it's like, some people, they decide, and then what happens is something changes. Like, so I made this decision, but that's before I knew this happened. That's someone who didn't commit. If you decide, things change, doesn't matter. I'm committed. I'll find the way, or I'll make the way. Who knows what I'm talking about? Make some noise. You know what I'm talking about there, right? But when you're committed, there's this energy. But when you resolve something, it's just like, it's done. It's almost like, well, think about it yourself before I tell you. What does it feel like when you resolve something? You're not just decided, you're not just committed. I've resolved. I'm going to own this. I'm going to have this experience. I'm going to have that body. I'm going to have this relationship. I'm going to have those finances. I'm going to own this AI thing. It's not going to own me. I've resolved. How many of you feel when you get to resolve, it feels almost peaceful? Makes a noise. It feels almost peaceful for you. That's it. Right? It's a level of certainty where it's like, now, this is just who I am. This is what it's about. It doesn't matter if things change. I committed, and more importantly, I've resolved. This is done. I'll find the way. I'll make the way. It's an incredible feeling inside. And the more you decide, commit, and resolve, when you make real decisions, you do all three of these, the more you build that muscle, the stronger it gets. And now, what used to be hard is easy. It's like if you're doing lifts and you want to build your bicep, you do curls, right? And if you take a weight that's really easy and you do 100 curls, it's useful, because if you don't use it, you lose it. But if you take a weight that's really heavy, right, remember, and you barely can lift it, and you try to do 10 curls with that, and you get, which of those 10 curls gives you most of the growth? It's the 12th one, right? If you hire a trainer, what do you train them to do? That you get them to push you beyond what you're comfortable with. Oh, I can't do one more. And what does a good trainer do? Four more. Right? I can't do 4 more. And you get 3 more in, and that third one gives you 90% of the growth. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about training yourself, because more important than AI is that you make decisions to use it, not be used by it. Listen, you can let things in life stress you. Stress can control you. Stress can use you, or you can use stress and convert it into a sense of peace because you've moved yourself forward. See, you don't have to be perfect. All you have to do is keep making progress, and you'll get there. And you'll get to places you never dreamed possible, only if you go through all 3 of these pieces. So if you want momentum, decide, commit, and resolve. How many of you feel that difference in resolve in your body? How many feel what it feels like out Oh, yes. So just for a moment to finish up, stand up. Wherever you are, stand up if you would. Stand up. Shake your body out again. Shake it out. Get some energy in that body. Wake it up. Come on. Move that body. All right. Stay standing. Shake your body out. Now stand tall. Like, try this for a second. Stand how you do when you're not sure. Like, I hope it works out. I hope I can do it. I know I need to. I know I should. Right? What's your body like when you're kind of hoping? Where are your shoulders? Where's your head? Are you breathing more full or more shallow? Do you talk loud or quiet? And then just right now, just for a second, snap yourself in a place of certainty. Like, I'm going to find the way or make the way. Say the phrase, yes. Say yes. Say yes. Make a move and go, yes. 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 Make the sound of absolute certainty out loud. Whatever sound that be, make it out loud. Absolute certainty as loud as you can. Nice and loud. That's it. That's it. That's it. That's it. Do it again. Make the sound as loud as you can. Absolute certainty. Strength. Go, go, go. That's it. That's it. Now, stay in this state. You'll notice your shoulders are back. Your head is up. Breathe fully. And let's make sure you make some decisions right now while you're in state. Close your eyes. Breathe deep. Say yes. Say yes. Say yes. Now, here's what I want you to do. While you're standing, the only thing that changes your life is decisions, so we don't just learn about it, let's do it. I want you to think of a small decision right now, any small decision that you know you should make. It could be about your body. It could be about what you eat. It could be something to do with how you spend your time, your relationship. It could be about learning. It could be about AI. It could be about anything. What's a decision you need to make that maybe you've been put off, not made, that if you made it today, a real decision, you decided, you committed, you resolved, you committed in that moment, scheduled something so it happens, you'd be thrilled with the result a year from now, even 6 months from now, even a month from now, even a week from now. Think of a decision right now that needs to be made in your life and in a state of certainty in your body. I want you to see that decision. I want you to feel yourself making that decision and taking action on it. Just know what it feels like. Ready? Raise your hand if you, let me see if you've got a decision you're ready to make. Good, good, good. Raise your hand if you've got a decision. Good, good. Then I want you to see yourself making that decision and say yes. Make that decision, yes. See that decision, yes. Make the decision, yes. That's it, that's it, that's it. Now think of a big decision you need to make. What's a big decision? One that would be a tough decision, but you know if you made it, it would take your life to the next level. It might take more time, more energy, more money, more effort, more focus, but you know if you made it, it would be incredible. What's a big decision? Maybe it's something you've been putting off. You know you need to make it. If you made it and you acted on that decision, you know it would change your life for the better. Maybe it's something you've been thinking about for a while. It's time to stop thinking, start deciding, just do it. You don't need to have all the answers. Maybe it's something you're committing to tonight. You're going to decide and commit that you're going to master something. AI. That's why you're here. Or anything you want to master. What's something else? Decide right now, what's a second decision, a big decision that if you made it and you followed through, you'd be thrilled out of your mind. You'd be like, this was one of the best, this was so important for my life. Raise your hand if you can think of a big decision that you've been putting off or haven't thought of, but you need to now. Make some noise if you know what that decision is. Make your move and say yes. Say yes. Say yes. See yourself making a decision right now. Decide you're going to do it. That's it. Commit that you're going to do it. See the impact of doing it. 6 months from now, a year from now, how is your life different? Feel it. See it. See the results. See the first decision and commit to it. You didn't just decide. See yourself committing, following through, doing what's necessary. Now, what are 2 actions you could take right away to make those decisions real? Think of the little decision. What's something you do right now, as soon as we finish here, to commit yourself to follow through while you're in state? Is there someone you can call? Is there something you need to schedule? Is there a class you need to enroll in? Is there a person you need to meet with that you can do immediately so that when you're out of state, you still follow through and you keep your word with yourself? You commit, and so you can have the resolution you deserve. Think of 1 or 2 actions you could take, a little one and a big one. Maybe you want to stop eating the way you've been eating, but you go home and all the crap is there. So you go home and you decide to take all that stuff, flush it down the toilet while you play the music of We Are the Champions of the World. I don't know. Something. What? Commit an act. What's a big decision? What's some action you could take on that big decision? What could you do today to commit yourself to follow through so you can get the ultimate result that you want? Who could you call? What could you schedule? What could you do? What could you enroll in? Who could you speak to? What could you do right now? What's a decision you could do, action you could take right now? What's commit you for the future? What's a big action you could take? You don't like your car, your kid hates your car. Your kid doesn't want to be seen in your car, so one day you blow it up so no one drives this car again, right? What's something crazy you could do that's fun, that commits you to follow through? Or what's something simple? Now, I want you to think of those 2 decisions. Raise your hand if you can think of 2 decisions, a small and a big one, that you know would change your life, and a couple actions you're going to take right away. Good. Then here's what I want you to do. Close your eyes and give yourself what we call a dopamine hit. What that means is think about the feeling in your body, how it feels to decide, and then commit, and then resolve that this is going to be the way your life is, that you're not going to settle for anything less. Breathe it in and feel it. And feel that energy in your body. Like, this feels so good to take the bull by the horns, not to be passive, not to sit on my butt, to go get what I need. Go get the skills, go get the talents, make the changes I need to make right now. And while you're doing that, what I want you to do is imagine all the good feelings that are going to come in your life because of what you did. What it'll make you feel like physically, mentally, emotionally, what it'll do for your finances, your relationship, your time, whatever it is you're deciding.